Okay, so have you ever heard of fatty liver disease? I mean, the name itself sounds kind of, well, unpleasant, right?
Hmm.
But it's actually way more common than you might think, and it can be a pretty serious issue.
Yeah. And the thing is, a lot of people who have it, they don't even realize it. It can be like this silent thing going on, and then all of a sudden,
Yeah, it's not like you wake up one morning and you're like, oh, my liver feels fatty today. So we're doing a deep dive into this whole thing. We've got some excerpts here from Story and Arien, and there's a lot of info packed in there.
oh yeah, definitely.
So our mission today is to break it all down for you. What exactly is fatty liver disease? Why should you care? And what can you actually do about it?
Right. Let's unpack it all.
Exactly. So first things first, what exactly are we talking about when we say fatty liver disease? Like what's actually going on in there?
So basically, it's when you get this buildup of excess fat in your liver cells. And I know that might sound kind of straightforward,
And
but
it's like, okay, fat in the liver, but what does that really mean, you know?
right, exactly. And over time, that excess fat, it can actually start to mess with your liver's ability to function properly. And it's not just one type of fatty liver disease either. You've got NAFLD, which stands for non-alcoholic fatty liver disease.
Right. So that's the one you can get even if you're not like a heavy drinker.
Exactly. And then there's AFLD, which is the alcoholic version. They both have different risk factors, but both can be serious.
Okay, so that's interesting. So even if you don't drink a lot, you can still be at risk. I'm guessing things like obesity and type 2 diabetes, those probably play a role, right?
Oh, absolutely. Those are some of the big ones for sure. The things that we call modifiable risk factors, meaning you can actually do something about them. But there are also some less obvious things that can increase your risk.
Really? Like what?
Well, certain medications can actually contribute to fatty liver disease. Things like methotrexate or tamoxifen,
Hmm.
even amiodarone. And then there's rapid weight loss, believe it or not. And also things like PCOS or even sleep apnea. It just goes to show you that liver health is connected to so many different aspects of our overall health.
Yeah, that's a good point. So it's not just about what we eat and drink. There's this whole web of things going on. Now, this is where it starts to get kind of scary, right? Because if you don't notice it early on, what kind of damage are we talking about? What can actually happen?
Well, if it's left unchecked, fatty liver disease can progress to some pretty serious complications. We're talking cirrhosis, which is basically scarring of the liver, and then liver failure, and
Wow.
even liver cancer. And the projections, I mean, they're pretty alarming. They're saying that mortality related to NFLD, the non-alcoholic kind, is projected to increase by a whopping 44%.
44%. Whoa, okay, so this is definitely something we need to pay attention to. So how would you even know if you had it? What are the signs and symptoms? Like, what should we be looking out for?
See, that's the tricky part. In the early stages, you might not have any noticeable symptoms at all.
Oh, great.
Yeah, it can be really sneaky. But as it progresses, you might start to experience things like fatigue, just feeling tired all the time, or some abdominal discomfort, especially in the upper right side where your liver is.
Okay.
And then, as it gets more severe, you might even start to see jaundice, which is when your skin and the whites of your eyes actually take on a yellowish color.
Oh, wow. That sounds pretty freaky. So fatigue, abdominal pain, and then turning yellow. Those are the big red flags.
Yeah, those are some of the key things to watch out for. You might also experience swelling in your legs or abdomen, or notice changes in your skin, like spider veins. But the important thing is, if you do experience any of these symptoms, don't just try to self-diagnose. Talk to your doctor to get a proper evaluation.
Right. Don't just Google it and freak yourself out.
Exactly.
So let's get to the million-dollar question. Can you actually reverse the damage once it's done? Is there a cure for fatty liver disease, or are you stuck with it once you have it?
Well, unfortunately, there's no magic pill you can take to instantly undo the damage.
Darn. I was hoping for a quick fix.
Yeah, I wish it were that easy. But the good news is, even though there's no instant cure, making changes to your lifestyle can make a huge difference. We're talking about things like diet, exercise.
Or the usual suspects.
Exactly. But even things like fasting have shown some real promise in terms of improving fatty liver disease.
Fasting. Wow. Okay. That sounds pretty intense. Is that safe for everyone?
Mm.
And what about if I have a sweet tooth? Can I still have a little bit of honey, or is that totally off limits?
Well, fasting definitely isn't for everyone, and it should always be done under medical supervision. But there are different approaches, like something called David fasting, which is a more structured regimen that's been shown to be effective in improving liver health markers. And as for honey, moderate consumption of manuka honey might actually be beneficial. It's got some antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties that could help protect the liver.
Manuka honey.
Ah.
Interesting. So it's not just for your tea anymore. But I'm guessing, like with most things, moderation is key here.
Oh, absolutely. Even though Manuka honey might have some benefits, it's still sugar at the end of the day. We can't go overboard with it.
Okay, good to know. So we've talked about the good stuff, but what about things we should avoid? Like, what makes fatty liver disease worse? What should we be steering clear of?
Well, certain medications can be tough on the liver, even some common ones. It's always a good idea to talk to your doctor about potential side effects, especially if you're concerned about your liver health. There's actually a whole category of drugs called hepatotoxic medications, which are known to potentially damage the liver. It's something to be aware of.
So even if it's something prescribed by a doctor, it's good to be aware of those potential risks. Got it. What else should we be cautious about?
Well, over-the-counter medications like acetaminophen, aspirin, ibuprofen, those can also be hard on the liver, especially if you take them in excess or for a prolonged period of time. Again, it's all about moderation and talking to your doctor.
Right. Seems like open communication with your doctor is a recurring theme here.
Definitely a good idea.
Okay, so before we get into what to do about all of this,
Ah.
I think it's important to understand the stages of fatty liver disease, right? Like, it's not just a one-size-fits-all kind of thing.
You're exactly right. There's actually a grading system that doctors use to assess the level of fat accumulation and damage in the liver. It goes from mild to severe. Grade 1 is the mildest, and then it goes up to grade 3, which is the most severe.
Okay, so it's progressive. And I'm guessing if it's not managed, it can eventually lead to those complications we talked about earlier.
Exactly. It can progress to fibrosis, which is when scar tissue starts to form in the liver. And then if it keeps going, it can turn into cirrhosis, which is when the scarring becomes really extensive and actually starts to impair liver function. That's why early detection is so important.
Right, because by the time you start noticing symptoms, it might already be pretty advanced.
Unfortunately, that's often the case.
Okay, well, this has definitely been a lot to take in. We've covered a lot of ground here, but it's all super important stuff. So before we move on to talking about what we can actually DO to manage and even reverse fatty liver disease, let's take a quick break to let all this sink in. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. So we've kind of laid out the problem, the what and the why of fatty liver disease. Now I want to get to the how. What can we actually DO to protect our livers?
Well, the good news is we actually have a lot of control when it comes to liver health. It really starts with those lifestyle changes we were talking about earlier.
Right, right. Diet and exercise. But, like, let's get specific. What does a liver-friendly diet look like? What should we be eating?
Well, think of it this way if you can. Imagine like a big Mediterranean spread, lots of fruits and vegetables,
Oh, that sounds good. I'm into that.
lots of whole grains, healthy fats.
Okay, so healthy fats.
Yeah.
What are some easy ways to get more of those into our diet?
Olive oil. Olive oil is your friend here. Use it for cooking, use it for salad dressings, and then you can always snack on things like avocados, nuts, seeds.
Okay, so ditch the deep fryer and embrace the olive oil.
Exactly. They're all packed with those good fats that your liver loves.
Got it. What about protein? What are some good protein sources for a liver-friendly diet?
Fish is a fantastic option, great source of protein, and it's got those omega-3 fatty acids, which can actually help to reduce liver fat.
Yeah, omega-3s, they're good for everything.
They are salmon, tuna, sardines, all great choices.
Okay, adding those to the grocery list. What else for protein?
Skinless poultry is another good one. Chicken, turkey, things like that. And don't forget about the plant-based protein sources like beans, lentils, tofu. There are so many delicious ways to get your protein without overloading your liver.
All right, so this is starting to sound like a pretty balanced and honestly pretty tasty way to eat, but I'm guessing there's a flip side to this. What are some things we should be avoiding? Like, what's on the no-no list for fatty liver disease?
Oh, well, sugar is definitely public enemy number one.
Sugar, yeah, figures.
It's really lurking everywhere, so you really got to be mindful.
But we're talking like sugary drinks, desserts, processed snacks, all that good stuff.
Exactly. And it's not just the obvious stuff. Be aware of hidden sugars in things like sauces, condiments, even bread.
It's amazing how much sugar they sneak into things, right?
Right.
All right, so sugar's out. What else should we be limiting?
Saturated and trans fats, those are definitely on the naughty list.
Ah, yeah, the bad fats.
Yep. You'll find those in fried foods, fatty meats, a lot of processed snacks.
So it really is about, like, cooking more at home and knowing what's going into your food.
It makes a big difference.
Okay, so I know we can't avoid this question forever. What about alcohol? What's the deal there? Like, for those of us who enjoy a glass of wine or a beer here and there, How does alcohol factor into all of this?
Well, for people with fatty liver disease, even moderate alcohol consumption can be harmful.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's really best to talk to your doctor about what's safe for you specifically, but generally speaking, limiting alcohol as much as possible is the safest bet.
All right, so maybe those out-of-work drinks need to be swapped for something a little kinder to the liver.
Yeah.
All right, so let's shift gears a little bit and talk about exercise. How much exercise do we actually need to help combat fatty liver disease?
Well, a good goal to aim for is at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity activity per week. Or if you prefer more vigorous activity, you can do 75 minutes of that.
Okay, 150 minutes of moderate or 75 of vigorous. That actually seems doable.
It's not as intimidating as it sounds.
No, not at all. So for the moderate intensity, what are some fun ways to get that in?
Oh, there's so many options. Brisk walking, swimming, cycling, dancing, anything that gets your heart rate up and you enjoy doing.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to feel like a chore, right?
Yeah,
And actually be enjoyable.
Exactly. And then for those who are ready for more of a challenge, the vigorous intensity stuff, you're talking about running, HIIT workouts, jumping rope, things like that.
Okay, so you can really tailor it to your fitness level and your preferences.
Absolutely. And the key is to listen to your body. Don't push yourself too hard, especially if you're just starting out.
Right. No need to become a marathon runner overnight.
Exactly. It's all about gradual progress.
Okay, so we've covered diet, exercise, but what about those other approaches we talked about earlier, like fasting and manuka honey? How do those fit into the whole picture?
They can be really powerful tools, but like we said before, you have to approach them with caution and always consult with your doctor first.
So no extreme fasting or honey binges, huh?
No, definitely not. Fasting should always be done safely and under medical supervision, especially if you have any other health conditions.
Right, right. And with the manuka honey, a little goes a long way.
Exactly. Think of it as a potential supplement to support your overall plan, not a magic bullet.
Got it. So we've got diet, exercise, fasting, manuka honey in our toolbox. What else is important to remember when it comes to managing fatty liver disease?
You know, one thing that often gets overlooked is stress management and good sleep. Those are so crucial.
Ah, yes, the foundations of a healthy life in general.
Exactly. But chronic stress and lack of sleep, those can really take a toll on your liver.
So finding healthy ways to manage stress, creating a good bedtime routine, all of that plays a role.
It all ties together. And then, of course, regular checkups with your doctor are essential. They can monitor your progress and make adjustments to your plan as needed.
Right, it's all about that open communication with your doctor.
Absolutely. They're your partner in all of this.
Okay, so it's really a multifaceted approach, but it all comes down to taking care of yourself, holistically.
I think that's a great way to put it.
It's kind of empowering, actually, to realize that we have so much control over our liver health. But I have to admit, thinking about making all of these changes, it can feel a little overwhelming.
I understand that.
Do you have any advice for people who might be feeling a little intimidated by all of this? Where do we even begin?
My advice is don't try to do everything at once. That's a recipe for burnout. Start small. Focus on one change at a time and celebrate those successes along the way. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
I love that analogy. Progress over perfection.
Exactly. And remember, you don't have to do this alone. Finding support can make a huge difference.
Yeah, that's so true. Who are some good people to reach out to for support with this?
Well, definitely talk to your doctor. They can be a great resource. Confide in friends and family. Let them know what you're going through. And you can even join a support group. There's a whole community of people out there who are facing similar challenges and can offer encouragement and advice.
That's really reassuring to know. This whole deep dive has been incredibly informative and honestly, a bit of a wake-up call for me. But it's not all doom and gloom. It's really about taking control and creating a healthier future for ourselves.
That's what we want people to take away from this.
Yeah, and knowing that you're not alone in this journey, there's support available. Well, before we move on to our final part, where we're going to focus on those next steps and how to really take charge of your liver health, let's take a quick pause. We'll be right back. Okay, so we're back, and I feel like we've covered a lot of ground here. But now I want to really get down to brass tacks. What are the most important takeaways? If I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, okay, I need to do something, what's the first step?
You know, it might sound simple, but honestly, the most important thing you can do is talk to your doctor.
Yeah, makes sense.
They can really help you personalize your approach, based on your individual situation, your risk factors.
Right, because everyone's a little different.
Exactly.
Okay, so step one, check in with the doctor. They'd kind of give me a baseline, maybe run some tests, that kind of thing. What's next? What do I do with that information?
Well, once you have a clear picture of where you're at, that's when you can start making those lifestyle changes we've been talking about. And remember, it's not about being perfect. It's about making sustainable changes.
Right, yeah. No need to, like, overhaul my entire life overnight. Right?
Exactly. Small steps, consistency. That's the key.
So where do I even begin? Like, what's a good starting point for someone who's feeling a little overwhelmed?
Honestly, start with the area that you feel most motivated to tackle. Maybe it's cleaning up your diet. Maybe it's incorporating more movement into your day. Maybe it's finding healthy ways to manage your stress.
Right, pick one thing and focus on that.
Exactly. Choose one area and set a small, achievable goal, something you feel confident you could stick with.
That's good advice. It's easy to get overwhelmed when you think about, like, doing it all.
Absolutely.
Now, what about resources? Are there any good, like, tools or support systems out there for people who are trying to make these changes?
Oh, absolutely. There are so many great resources available these days. Websites, books, apps, you name it.
Wow. So I can basically have, like, a pocket coach guiding me through this whole thing.
Pretty much. And they can help you with everything from meal planning to finding workout routines to practicing mindfulness techniques.
That's amazing.
And don't underestimate the power of community.
Oh, yeah.
Connecting with others who are going through the same thing can be so supportive and motivating.
That's so true. It's always easier when you have people in your corner cheering you on.
Yeah.
Where are some good places to find those communities?
Well, there are online forums and support groups, even social media groups dedicated to fatty liver disease.
Oh, I bet.
It's a great way to share experiences, ask questions, learn from others who have been there.
I'm feeling a lot more optimistic about this whole thing now.
That's great to hear.
Yeah, it's not as scary as it seemed at first. Fatty liver disease is serious, but it's also manageable. Like, we really do have the power to make a difference.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power, and I hope our listeners feel empowered to take action.
And knowing that you're not alone, that there's support available, I think that's huge.
I agree.
Well, this has been an incredibly informative deep dive. Eye-opening for sure, maybe even a little bit of a wake-up call.
It's always good to have those wake-up calls.
It is. But ultimately, I feel empowered to take charge of my liver health, and I hope our listeners do too.
That's the goal.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. This has been incredibly valuable.
My pleasure. It's been great talking to you.
And to our listeners, we hope you found this deep dive informative and empowering. Remember, you can subscribe to our show for more deep dives into all sorts of fascinating topics. And be sure to share this episode with anyone who you think might benefit from it. Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and take good care of yourselves.
And your livers.
And your livers. We'll see you next time.